You know, when you watch like a massive blockbuster movie, there's this deeply comforting, almost mathematical geometry to the whole thing.
No, absolutely. It's totally engineered to make you feel good.
Right. The hero faces an impossible problem. Maybe it's a corrupt politician or a violent syndicate or just a failing town. The music swells, the lighting gets super dramatic, and there's one grand soaring speech.
Or, one perfectly choreographed slow motion fight scene.
Exactly. And then the system is just poof, fixed. The villain goes to jail. The town is saved. The credits roll. We all go home happy, eating our popcorn, feeling like justice is this really neat, packageable thing.
It's a closed loop. I mean, the conflict is literally designed from page 1 to be entirely solved within exactly 2.5 hours. It's clean, it's deeply satisfying, and most importantly, it offers total closure.
But then you step out of the theater and into the actual grinding gears of the real world specifically, into state-level governance.
Yeah.
And suddenly that script is completely thrown out the window.
Yeah, there's no director yelling cut when a policy fails.
Or when a disaster strikes. The problems are messy, they really don't care about a dramatic monologue, and they certainly don't disappear just because someone gave a really good, intense look at the camera.
Right. It is the absolute definition of an endless, unscripted reality. Real-world problems are chronic. The solutions are almost always compromised in some way. And the audience, meaning the millions of citizens whose lives actually depend on your decisions, they never, ever stop watching.
Hello and welcome to Noolism's Deep Dive. We are jumping straight into one of the most fascinating, high-stakes political experiments unfolding on the globe right now.
We really are. It's a massive shift.
So to you, our listener, before we start, don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share this Noolism YouTube channel. Today's mission, today's core question is, why might Vijay fail as a leader?
Or at least, why translating astronomical cinema's success into actual effective political leadership is incredibly difficult.
Exactly. We are looking squarely at Tamil Nadu, India. It's a massive state, a huge economic powerhouse, and right now it is the stage for the transition of an undeniably iconic film superstar Vijay into the brutal, complex, and unforgiving arena of state politics.
And he's doing this with his newly formed party, the Tamalaga Vetri Kazhagam, or the TVK.
We're going to explore the 6 core reasons why he might struggle, breaking down the massive difference between on-screen popularity and real-world governance. But first, let's talk about our sources today.
Right, because we have a huge stack of material to get through.
We do. We're looking at everything from academic papers like one titled The Cinematic Paradigm and the Administrative Deficit to Wikipedia articles on recent political tragedies, all the way to news transcripts from major Indian networks.
And we really need to pause here for a crucial disclaimer to you, the listener. These sources contain highly charged political opinions.
Very charged.
I mean, we are talking about material involving multiple fiercely loyal parties, the ruling DMK, the opposition AIDMK, the national BJP, and of course the TVK itself.
So we want to make it absolutely 100% clear. We are not taking any sides today.
None at all. We are not endorsing any of the viewpoints from the left wing, the right wing, or anywhere in between.
We are here strictly as impartial guides to impartially report and analyze the ideas that are contained in the original source material. Nothing more, nothing less.
Exactly. We're just looking at the raw political math, the historical precedents, the data, and the reality of the ground game.
Okay, let's unpack this. The central theme today is a simple but hard truth. Cinema success does not equal political success.
It really doesn't. Popularity might open the door, but it doesn't keep the lights on.
Right. While Vijay has immense popularity, the kind of fame that seasoned politicians would literally sell their souls for leadership actually requires governance skills. And that brings us to the first major hurdle for the TVK.
Which analysts call the institutional navigational deficit.
Which, to a layperson like me, just sounds like a fancy way of saying he doesn't have a resume.
That's a fair way to summarize it. But the context of Tamil Nadu makes this specific deficit really fascinating, because Tamil Nadu actually has a globally unique history of actors successfully taking over the state.
Right, it's not unprecedented there.
Not at all. You have M.G. Ramachandran, universally known as MGR, who became an iconic, almost deified chief minister. Then J. Jayalalitha, his protege, and a massive star in her own right, who dominated the state's politics for decades. You even have Vijayakanth, who became the leader of the opposition.
So the pathway is definitely there. The electorate in Tamil Nadu isn't inherently hostile to voting for actors.
Exactly. Being an actor isn't a disqualifier. But looking at the political analysis, there is a massive difference in how Vijay is making this leap compared to his predecessors.
He's basically trying to skip the tutorial and jump straight to the final boss fight, right?
That's the core of the critique. It's his top-down entry. He is stepping straight from the silver screen, where he is currently at the absolute peak of his box office power, by the way, into a bid for the chief minister seat in the 2026 assembly elections.
Without any of the traditional institutional history.
Right. And what that means on a day-to-day level is that he hasn't spent decades grinding it out in local body administration.
No city council meetings, no zoning disputes.
Exactly. He didn't come up through those fiery, combative student unions. He hasn't had to navigate the brutal, backstabbing internal tiers of an established party structure. He hasn't learned how to compromise with a rival faction just to get a basic bill passed.
And he's trying to take over a state that is an absolute beast to manage. I mean, Tamil Nadu is not some sleepy rural outpost. It is a massive economic juggernaut.
Oh, the numbers are staggering.
We're talking about a state that posted an 11.19% gross state domestic product GSDP growth rate in the 2024-2025 fiscal year. That is the highest among major Indian states. It's a huge hub for automobile manufacturing, IT, textiles.
And to govern a state like that requires a profound level of administrative capability. You aren't just out there cutting ribbons and taking photos. You are managing incredibly complex fiscal policies. You have to understand the nuances of what is famously called the Dravidian model.
Okay, let's pause there for a second because that term gets thrown around a lot in our sources.
Yeah.
For someone listening in, say, London or New York, what exactly is the Dravidian model of governance?
So in purely economic and administrative terms, the Dravidian model is this unique, highly successful blend of aggressive, rapid industrialization paired with massive, almost unprecedented social safety nets.
Kind of like a hybrid approach?
Yeah. So on one hand, you are courting multinational corporations to build massive car factories near Chennai. But on the other hand, you are implementing widespread free breakfast schemes for school children, huge cash transfer programs for women heads of households, and heavily subsidized public transport.
And beneath all of that, a leader has to navigate these deep-seated, historically entrenched, caste-based patronage networks that essentially dictate local power dynamics.
Exactly. It is a wildly complex balancing act.
But wait, let me push back on this whole lack of experience narrative for a second.
Yeah.
His fan club, the Vijay Makali Yakam, the VMI, they've been doing social welfare work since 2009.
True, they have a long track record of that.
Right. They run blood donation camps, free food services, evening tuition centers for kids. And in the 2021 rural local body elections, members of his fan club actually won 115 seats. So doesn't that count as ground-level administrative experience?
I mean, it definitely counts as social mobilization, and it proves he has a very dedicated network. But political scientists draw a very, very hard line between philanthropy and governance.
How so?
Well, managing a fan club's welfare drive, where everyone is a willing volunteer united by their love for a star, is fundamentally different from managing the state's bureaucratic machinery. The state is full of career civil servants, competing interests, hostile labor unions, and miles of red tape.
It's like assuming someone can take over as the CEO of a multinational global supply chain company just because they successfully organized a really well-attended, highly profitable neighborhood bake sale.
Yes, I love that analogy.
Like, yes, you moved product and you made money, but the scale, the stakes, and the legal liabilities change the nature of the job entirely.
That analogy gets right to the heart of the Adhikathi critique that we saw in the sources.
Oh, right, the cardboard knife.
Exactly. Adhikathi translates to cardboard knife. It's an insult heavily utilized by his political rivals, particularly when they compare his entry to the legacy of MGR. They label Vijay an Adhikathi, someone who looks incredibly sharp, dynamic, and dangerous on a movie poster, but who lacks any actual cutting-edge or administrative substance when you bring him out into the real world.
Literally a prop weapon.
Just a prop. And the TVK tries to counter that by framing him as the ultimate whistleblower against a corrupt system.
But being a whistleblower, which essentially just means pointing your finger at the flaws in a system, is fundamentally different from having the capability to actually resolve bureaucratic inertia.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let me give you a concrete example from the sources. The Penai River water sharing dispute.
Okay, what is the context on that?
It's a highly contentious ongoing dispute between Tamil Nadu and the neighboring state of Karnataka over the building of dams and the sharing of river water. And this directly impacts the livelihoods of thousands of farmers.
A huge deal for the agricultural sector.
Massive. And how do you resolve that? You can't just stand on the banks of the river, give a passionate, beautifully scripted monologue, and expect the water to flow.
Right, the river does not care about your box office numbers.
It really doesn't. Resolving that requires deep legal acumen. It requires understanding interstate water tribunals. It requires intense federal negotiation with the central government in New Delhi. And it requires institutional patience because these things take years, sometimes decades. A cardboard knife simply cannot cut through decades of interstate legal gridlock.
And this lack of institutional knowledge isn't just an abstract academic debate about water rights, right? When a crisis occurs in real time and you don't know how to pull the levers of state power, the consequences aren't just bad press. The consequences are devastating.
They are fatal.
Which leads perfectly into our second point, the clash between the cinematic image and real-world crisis handling. We have to talk about how this theoretical deficit collided violently with reality during the Karur tragedy.
This is where the cinematic paradigm completely shatters. Because in movies, the hero is this infallible arbiter of justice. If there's a crisis, the hero bypasses systemic flaws, punches the right people, and saves the day immediately.
But real leadership is about anticipating disasters, managing logistics, and handling the horrific fallout when things go wrong.
Let's walk through exactly what happened because the details from the reports are just staggering.
So, September 27, 2025, the TVK organized a massive political rally in Velusamipuram, right on the Karur Road highway. This was supposed to be a massive show of strength for the new party.
But it ended in an absolute nightmare, a crowd crush that left 41 people dead and over 100 heavily injured.
It's just horrific.
It was a profound failure of basic public safety. And to understand why it happened, you have to look at the mechanics of crowd control and the complete collapse of the event's command structure.
The police, FIR, the First Information Report, lays out a timeline that's just incredibly frustrating to read. The venue was an 11,000 square meter area. The seating capacity was strictly for about 60,000 people.
Keep that number in mind, 60,000.
Right. And the police had explicitly granted permission for the gathering to take place between 3:00 p.m. and 10:00 p.m., but the TVK leadership announced that Vijay would arrive at noon.
Which created a deadly logistical domino effect. Because of his astronomical popularity, the crowd began gathering way early. And it's vital to note that uniquely for Tamil Nadu political rallies, this crowd included a huge number of families, children, and young women demographics that were drawn primarily by his cinematic appeal.
They weren't seasoned political rallygoers.
Exactly. And they started packing into this space by 10:00 a.m. Some reports say they were there by 9:00 a.m.
In the blazing heat.
Extreme heat. The ground quickly exceeded that 60,000 capacity limit. There's a severe scarcity of food, drinking water, and basic sanitation amenities. And because people were terrified of losing their vantage points near the barricades, many just refused to leave to go get water. They just stood there baking in the sun.
And the worst part is, he didn't arrive at noon.
No, he was delayed by nearly 7 hours.
7 hours. I mean, imagine standing in a crush of 60,000 plus people for 7 hours with no water. Paramedics and witnesses reported that people were fainting from severe dehydration hours before the rally even officially started.
Ambulances were trying to launch rescue operations into the crowd by 6:00 p.m., but they couldn't even get through the sheer mass of humanity.
And then, when Vijay's convoy finally approached in the dark, large sections of this completely exhausted, desperate, dehydrated crowd surged forward toward the barricades just to catch a glimpse of him. And that is when the crush happened.
The police FIR is incredibly damning here. The local authorities accused the TVK leadership of deliberately delaying Vijay's appearance by 4 hours, purely to, quote, exhibit political strength, to show the ruling party just how massive a crowd they could hold.
Wow. Playing politics with a crowd that size.
The police alleged the party completely ignored safety advice, failed to put up adequate barricades, and then, the most shocking part, they claim Vijay himself violated traffic protocols by stopping his convoy repeatedly to indulge in unsanctioned roadshows, waving to fans, which further delayed his arrival while the crowd inside the venue was literally suffocating.
And this brings us to the crucible of political leadership, right?
Yeah.
ISIS management. When the worst happens on your watch, how do you handle the aftermath?
Initially, he released a statement expressing unbearable pain. He announced financial compensation, 2 million rupees to the families of the deceased and 200,000 rupees to the injured.
Which, as we know, is pretty standard political protocol. But the political backlash, particularly from the IT wings of rival parties like the AIEDMK, was ferocious. They basically accused him of absolute narcissism.
They pointed out a glaring difference in behavior. Instead of immediately rushing to Karur, going to the hospital, standing on the ground with the grieving families while the blood was still fresh, which is exactly what a seasoned politician would do to show empathy and take control of the narrative, he essentially retreated.
Critics claim he barricaded himself at his residence in Panayur for 72 days, holding token meetings in Chennai with party officials. He did eventually meet the victims' families, but it was a month later, and it was at a resort in Mamallapuram.
The contrast there is just glaring. When an actor stars in a box office flop, they can retreat to their mansion, avoid the press, and wait for it to blow over. But when a political leader is the central figure in a tragedy at their own event, the public demands physical presence, immediate empathy, and absolute accountability.
You cannot outsource responsibility to your event planners when 41 people are dead.
What's fascinating here is how the state responded. By January 2026, the Central Bureau of Investigation, the CBI, stepped in. Vijay was summoned to Delhi. And they didn't just ask for a brief statement. They grilled him with a 93-question booklet.
93 questions.
They wanted hard answers. Why didn't he stop his speech the moment he realized the crowd was surging? Why was there a complete breakdown in coordination with the state police?
Sociologist Max Weber has a concept that perfectly explains this transition. He talks about different types of authority. Vijay is currently operating on charismatic authority. People follow him out of sheer adoration and emotional connection.
But to govern, you must transition to legal, rational authority. That means you have to answer to the law, to strict procedures, to the police, and to the consequences of your organizational failures. The CBI inquiry was the brutal enforcement of legal, rational authority.
So when you are standing in the fire of a CBI investigation, when rival parties are tearing you apart over a tragedy, you need a rock-solid ideological foundation to keep your party from crumbling. You need to be able to point to a core belief system and say, this is why we are fighting.
But does Vijay have that? Let's look at the ideology of the TVK, which brings us to point number 3. One political analyst described it as beautifully vague.
Ideology is the compass of any political movement. So what does the TVK actually stand for? Vijay launched his party with a brilliant slogan taken directly from the Thirukkural, which is an ancient, universally revered Tamil text. The slogan is Pirapokam Elovirkum, which translates to all are equal by birth.
It's an incredible slogan. I mean, it's universally appealing. Who is going to argue against equality by birth?
Right. He states his party's core ideology is secular social justice, and he's actively aligned his brand with massive historical titans. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the architect of the Indian Constitution, Periyar, the father of the Dravidian movement, and Kamaraj, a legendary former chief minister known for his educational reforms.
On a billboard, it looks incredibly comprehensive. But when political scientists analyze his platform, they point out a massive fundamental oxymoron at the heart of his strategy. He is attempting to merge two deeply conflicting concepts, Dravidam and Tamil nationalism.
Okay, let's stop right there. Because to someone sitting in, say, Chicago or Sydney, Dravidian and Tamil nationalists probably sound like two ways of saying the exact same thing. What is the actual friction between these two ideologies? Why do the sources call them oxymoronic?
It's a great question because it's the defining fault line of Tamil Nadu politics. Dravidam, or the Dravidian ideology, which forms the absolute bedrock of both the ruling DMK and the opposition AIADMK, is historically an inclusive reformist philosophy.
Okay, inclusive in what way?
It was born out of the Justice Party and Periyar's self-respect movement. Its primary focus is social justice, dismantling caste hierarchies, and fighting against Brahminical hegemony. Crucially, it does not discriminate strictly on the basis of language.
So it's broader than just Tamil.
Yes. It views Tamil Nadu as a home for all Dravidian linguistic groups, including those who speak Telugu, Malayalam, or Kannada, provided they assimilate into the broader sociocultural fabric.
Got it. So Dravidianism is a broad tent focused on social reform and anti-caste structures. What about Tamil nationalism?
Tamil nationalism, which is fiercely championed today by leaders like Seaman and his party, the name Tamil Katchi, the NTK, is a highly exclusive ideology. It is deeply focused on linguistic purity and ethnic identity.
Ah, so it draws much harder lines.
Very hard lines. Tamil nationalists often reject the Dravidian label entirely, viewing it as an artificial umbrella term imposed by outsiders to dilute true Tamil power. They argue that Tamil Nadu should be ruled exclusively by native Tamils, and they often target political leaders with Telugu or Kannada ancestry.
So you have one philosophy that says we are a broad linguistic coalition of the marginalized fighting caste, and another that says Tamil land for pure Tamils only. And Vijay is walking out onto a stage and trying to say, I am somehow both of these things.
Exactly.
But I'll play devil's advocate here. Isn't that just smart, pragmatic politics? I mean, in America, we'd call that running to the center. He's targeting the DMK as his political enemy and the national BJP as his ideological enemy. Isn't he just casting the widest net possible to get the most votes?
In a nascent, undeveloped political landscape, maybe. But Tamil Nadu is a highly mature, hyper-literate political market. When you try to synthesize two opposing ideologies in a crowded market like that, you don't achieve a grand coalition. You achieve dilution.
You end up pleasing no one.
Right. If you try to be everything to everyone, you end up standing for nothing specific. The voters can smell the lack of conviction.
And the analysts highlight this dilution perfectly by looking at something as simple as his party flag.
Yes, the semiotics of the TVK flag are actually fascinating. It's a two-color flag, maroon, red, and yellow, featuring two war elephants and a vege flower, which is an ancient symbol of victory.
Sounds pretty standard.
But what political observers immediately zeroed in on wasn't what was on the flag, it was what was missing. There is no black.
Why is black so important?
In Tamil Nadu, colors are not just graphic design, they are deep ideological declarations. Black historically represents rationalism, the aggressive anti-caste movement, and the fight against social oppression. It is the core color of the Dravidian movement started by Periyar, literally the black shirt movement. Both the DMK and AIADMK flags prominently feature black.
So by dropping it.
By intentionally dropping the black band to make his flag more universally inclusive and less aggressive, critics argue Vijay is losing his ideological sharpness. He is stepping away from the traditional militant anti-theism of Dravidian politics to avoid alienating religious voters.
Which completely explains his other slogan, one community, one God.
Precisely. That is a very calculated, tactical move. He is trying to appeal to religious believers and spiritual voters while simultaneously trying to maintain the secular social justice label. It's a political tightrope walk. But to his rivals, it just makes him look like a chameleon who will say whatever the crowd in front of him wants to hear.
And we see this vagueness totally reflected in his actual policy demands. Two of his biggest rallying cries are demanding the abolishment of the NEET medical exam and demanding that the subject of education be moved back to the state list from the concurrent list.
These are immensely popular demands in Tamil Nadu. But again, we have to look at the mechanics of how government works.
Let's explain those mechanics for our listeners. What is NEET and what are these lists?
NEET is the National Eligibility Cum Entrance Test. It's a standardized national exam for students who want to study medicine. Tamil Nadu strongly opposes it, arguing that a standardized national exam inherently favors wealthy, urban students who can afford private coaching, and it penalizes rural students who study under the state board syllabus. The state argues it destroys social justice in medical education.
Makes sense. Now, what about the lists?
The Indian Constitution divides power between the central government in New Delhi and the state governments. You have the union list things only the center handles, like defense. You have the state list things only the state handles, like local police. And you have the concurrent list, where both can make laws, but federal law overrides state law. Education is currently on the concurrent list.
So Vijay is telling the crowds, vote for me and I will scrap NEET and take control of education back to the state list.
Which, as political scientists note, are motherhood and apple pie generalities. Literally every single regional party in Tamil Nadu wants that. But you cannot achieve that by just winning the state election and signing a piece of paper in Chennai.
It's not a unilateral decision.
Not at all. Scrapping a national exam and amending the Constitution to move education back to the state list requires monumental, complex federal negotiation with the central government, the Prime Minister, and Parliament in New Delhi. Demanding it on a stage is incredibly easy. Executing it is an entirely different skill set requiring constitutional lawyers and immense federal leverage.
Which brings us to the fourth point, and honestly the most practical problem of all. If your ideology is a vague mishmash and your policy promises are just popular catchphrases that actually require federal negotiation, it makes it incredibly difficult to attract seasoned, heavy-hitting political mechanics to come work for you.
You need a team. State governance, especially of a trillion-rupee economy, is not a one-man show.
Right. People who actually know how to pull the levers of government need a clear, concrete vision to follow. And this leads us to the TVK's massive administrative vacuum.
This is perhaps the most immediate hurdle Vijay faces. A leader is only as effective as the cabinet they command. You need experienced ministers who know how to interrogate a departmental budget. You need policy experts who can draft watertight legislation that won't get struck down by the Supreme Court. You need seasoned negotiators who can handle labor unions, massive industry conglomerates, and the central government.
So let's look at who is actually in the room with Vijay making these decisions.
Yeah.
The TVK formed a 28-member executive committee to run the daily affairs of the party. But when analysts look at that roster, the deficit is glaring.
It really is. It is largely composed of two groups: Vijay's long-term personal associates from his fan club days, and a handful of second-tier defectors from other political parties.
We're talking about figures like Adhav Arjuna, who defected from the VCK, a major Dalit political party, and CTR Nirmal Kumar, who came over from the AIEDMK's IT wing. Why do politicians like that defect to a brand new party?
Usually, second-tier leaders defect because they have hit a glass ceiling in their current party. The top leadership spots are occupied, the hierarchy is rigid, and they want a shortcut to power. Joining a massive star's new party gives them instant visibility and a high-ranking title.
What?
But the crucial point is that these are not heavyweight administrators with decades of legislative lawmaking experience. They are political operatives. They are not governance experts.
Contrast that with the ruling DMK. The data shows that the DMK remains the absolute preferred destination for senior, proven administrative talent. When veteran politicians with actual governance experience defect from the AIATMK people like A. Anwar Raja or R. Vaithalingam, they don't go to Vijay's startup party. They go to the DMK because they want to align with a machine that knows how to hold and exercise power.
And when the TVK does manage to attract a prominent face, it creates this bizarre, hypocritical contradiction. Take K.A. Sangatayan, for example.
Right. He is a 9-time legislator. He is a former education minister. On paper, he's exactly the kind of heavyweight Vijay needs to show he has a serious team.
But, and this is a massive bite, he was a minister under the previous AIADMK regime.
Which is the exact same regime that Vijay is currently attacking in his speeches as being deeply corrupt and fundamentally broken. It's an incredible irony.
It really is.
You build your entire brand on being the clean, fresh outsider arriving to sweep away the corrupt old guard. But the moment you need someone who actually knows how to run an education department, your biggest administrative hire is a literal cornerstone of that exact old guard.
It speaks to a deep desperation for political legitimacy. You need recognizable politicians to look like a real party, but by hiring the people you are criticizing, you dilute your anti-incumbency message. It leaves the party looking, as one analyst termed it, like an amateur experiment.
I keep thinking of this in terms of the tech world. It's like a brand new startup aggressively claiming they're going to build a reusable rocket that will put SpaceX completely out of business. But when you look at their staff directory, they don't have any aerospace engineers.
Just social media managers?
Exactly. It's just the CEO's college buddies, a bunch of enthusiastic interns who run their Twitter account, and 2 mid-level executives who just got fired from the competitor they were trying to disrupt. You simply cannot build a rocket with that team.
That is exactly the dynamic. And without a strong, experienced team to manage the grueling, unglamorous work of ground-level booth committees, drafting policy, and mobilizing voters on Election Day, you are relying purely on a massive, enthusiastic fan base.
Which brings us to point number 5, the huge gap between public expectations and electoral reality.
Right, the fan-to-voter conversion.
Relying purely on fans creates a dangerous, potentially fatal asymmetry. Because the TVK functionaries are pushing a very aggressive narrative. They're claiming in the press that they already command a 28% vote share in Tamil Nadu simply by virtue of Vijay's massive star power.
28% right out of the gate for a debut party is a staggering, almost delusional claim. And the data-driven research paper we looked at from Sri Ashwar College of Engineering absolutely dismantles that premise.
Let's look at the math there.
To hit 28% in a debut state election, Vijay would need an unprecedented historical political earthquake. He would essentially need the core, loyal, multi-generational voter bases of both the DMK and the AIADMK to completely collapse overnight. The research paper projects a much more realistic, though still highly disruptive, range of 10 to 15% of the vote share, and that assumes he captures the youth demographic effectively.
And here is where we have to explain the brutal reality of the first-past-the-post electoral system, because it explains why 15% doesn't mean what people think it means. In some European proportional representation systems, if your party gets 15% of the overall vote, you get roughly 15% of the seats in parliament. You have power.
You get a voice at the table. But India and Tamil Nadu use first past the post. It is a winner-take-all system in every single constituency.
Imagine a race where only the person who crosses the finish line first gets a medal. The person in second place gets absolutely nothing, even if they were only one step behind. If the TVK gets 15% of the vote spread evenly across every district in the state, they will come in second or third everywhere. They will get massive crowds, they'll get huge cheers, and they will likely win 0 actual seats in the Legislative Assembly.
Exactly. This is the fan-to-voter conversion asymmetry. People constantly point to MGR's success as proof that Vijay can conquer the state, but they ignore the historical reality of MGR's rise.
How is it different?
MGR's fan clubs, the MGR Mandrams, didn't just pop up overnight. They were deeply, organically embedded within the DMK's grassroots political machinery for 2 decades before he launched his own party. His fans were already highly politicized, trained political cadres.
Vijay is starting from absolute scratch. Yes, he draws crowds that defy logic. The reports say a staggering 800,000 people attended his first major political conference in Vikravandi. That is mind-boggling scale.
It's massive.
But screaming for a movie star at a rally on a Sunday afternoon does not automatically equal waking up early on a Tuesday, standing in the hot sun in a voting line, and casting a ballot for a completely untested political apparatus over the party your family has voted for 40 years.
Especially when that untested apparatus is making promises it mathematically cannot keep. And this is where the danger of unmet expectations becomes acute. When you rile up a massive base with utopian promises, you set a trap for yourself.
Let's look at the TVK's 2026 manifesto promises, because they read like a wish list that completely ignores the existence of accounting. He is promising a sovereign of gold, which is about 8 grams of 22-karat gold, and a silk sari as a wedding gift for young women.
Just giving out gold.
Right. He's promising gold rings and a baby welcome kit for every single newborn in the state. Free sanitary pads, smart panic buttons for women's safety. A direct monthly financial aid of 2,500 rupees for women.
On an emotional level, it is brilliant targeting. It speaks directly to the economic anxieties of the working class. But you have to contrast those golden promises with the grim, unyielding reality of Tamil Nadu's state ledger.
Let's do the math. The state is currently carrying a debt burden of roughly 10 lakh crores. For our international listeners, that is 10 trillion rupees. It is an astronomical amount of debt.
If you calculate the sheer volume of marriages and births in a state of 70 million people and multiply that by the current market price of a sovereign of gold, you are looking at a fiscal impossibility.
It just doesn't add up.
If he were somehow to win and he attempted to implement these schemes, the state would literally default within a fiscal quarter. The treasury is empty.
And when the sky-high expectations of a fan base meet the brick wall of state debt, the mismatch is violent. If he wins, and he can't deliver the gold or the cash, the public backlash wouldn't just be disappointment. It would be a sense of profound personal betrayal. Fans feel they own the star. When the star lies to them, they turn.
So, if the data suggests he likely cannot win outright and his promises are fiscally impossible, what is his actual role in this election? Why does this matter?
What are the analysts saying?
Political analysts define his role as the strategic disruptor.
Oh. In a first-past-the-post system, you don't need to win the marathon to change the outcome. You just need to trip the runner currently in first place.
That is exactly the dynamic. Vijay's primary catchment area, the voters he is most likely to attract, are first-time voters, Dalit and Vaniyar youth, and the urban anti-incumbency demographic.
Which means he's going to siphon votes directly from the ruling DMK alliance. If he takes just 3 or 4% of the youth vote in a tight district away from the DMK or away from their allies like the VCK, he hands that district on a silver platter to the opposition AIA-DMK.
Yes. He is also perfectly positioned to cannibalize the angry anti-establishment youth vote that has been gravitating towards Siemens NTK over the last decade.
He is injecting sheer chaos into a very finely tuned coalition arithmetic. He is the ultimate spoiler.
But then this leads us to our final point. Playing that disruptor role, managing these unprecedented crowds, navigating the crushing state debt, and facing down deeply established, utterly ruthless political machines. It creates an immense, isolating psychological burden.
Which is point number 6. Decision-making pressure and intense personal scrutiny. Is Vijay ready for that kind of pressure? Because being a movie star is undeniably stressful. But it is a protected stress.
Highly protected.
You have talent managers, aggressive publicists, bodyguards, makeup artists, and a script. If you say the wrong line, you just do another take. Politics strips every single layer of that protection away.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this raises an important question about the fundamental psychological makeup required to be a state leader. Political decisions do not happen on a soundstage. They happen in real time. They are made under a microscope.
No safety net.
None. And most often, executive leadership isn't about choosing between a good option and a bad option. It's about being forced to choose the least destructive of two terrible options and then owning the pain that decision causes.
And looking at his behavior so far, his rivals are aggressively attacking his ability to handle this. They point out his intense media isolation. Since launching the party, he rarely, if ever, gives unscripted, one-on-one media interviews. He prefers controlled, highly choreographed mass stage monologues where no one can interrupt him.
In the political debates we reviewed, the DMK spokespersons hit this point relentlessly. They argue that Vijay is not confident enough in his own ideology to sit down with a veteran journalist or a group of angry university students and answer unscripted, hostile questions. Their argument is simple. A leader cannot govern a state from behind a one-way mirror. You have to face the press.
But the moment you step out from behind that mirror, the attacks become incredibly, viciously personal. The political landscape in Tamil Nadu is famously unforgiving. Entering politics means the absolute loss of the cinematic bubble.
The gloves come completely off.
His political rivals have already launched what analysts are calling a slander spree. They've targeted his past, suggesting his high movie ticket sales are a form of financial corruption or money laundering.
But, the financial attacks are standard political playbook. What is truly destabilizing is the microscopic, unrelenting scrutiny placed on his private life. Every personal relationship, every family dynamic becomes weaponized political leverage.
The details unfolding right now are painful, but they are highly relevant to his political viability. Just recently, his wife, Sangeetha Vijay, formally petitioned a Chennai family court for divorce, and the allegations cited in the petition are explosive.
Very serious allegations.
She cited persistent mental cruelty, severe neglect, and an alleged extramarital relationship with an actress.
When you are a private citizen, or even just an actor, a divorce is a personal tragedy. When you are running for chief minister on a platform of secular social justice and promising to protect the women of the state, a divorce petition citing cruelty is no longer a private family matter.
It becomes front-page political news.
Exactly. The opposition IT wings use it to attack his character, his morality, and his fitness to govern. The scrutiny intensifies every single move he makes.
And the media ecosystem is brutal. Just days after the divorce news broke, Vijay made a joint public appearance at a wedding with Trisha Krishnan, his co-star from massive box office hits like Leo, Gilly, and Goat.
The optics of that.
The social media speculation, the rumor mills, the political spin, it caught fire instantly. The courts have been asked to conduct the divorce proceedings in camera, meaning in private, to protect their dignity, but the political damage is already in the air.
And this is the ultimate test of political endurance. Can a leader maintain their composure, their strategic vision, and their emotional stability when they are being attacked from all sides simultaneously?
It's hard to even imagine.
Imagine the mental bandwidth required. He is facing grueling CBI investigations over a tragedy that cost 41 lives. He is navigating a deeply painful, highly public divorce where his character is being assassinated daily. And he is simultaneously trying to build a statewide political apparatus from scratch against two multi-billion-dollar political machines.
Most people would completely break under that pressure.
Yeah.
They would lash out or they would just quit.
To succeed, it requires a psychological resilience that is entirely different from the resilience needed to survive the film industry. You cannot resort to the politics of hate, you cannot throw a tantrum, and you cannot hide in your vanity van. You have to stand in the fire day after day and still convince millions of people that you are the only one who can lead them to a better future.
Wow. Okay. We have covered incredible ground today. Let's recap this massive journey for you, our listener. We started with the core question. Why doesn't billion-dollar cinema success automatically equal political success? And we've explored the 6 massive hurdles standing in Vijay's way as he attempts to conquer Tamil Nadu.
It's a steep climb.
First, the institutional navigational deficit. You cannot manage a trillion-rupee state economy and the complexities of the Dravidian model using the same skills it takes to run a fan club charity drive.
Right. And second, the devastating clash between the invincible cinematic image and the brutal reality of crisis management, which was tragically exposed by the Kaur stampede and the subsequent collapse of command and control.
Third, the ideological paradox. He's attempting to blend the inclusivity of Dravidianism with the exclusivity of Tamil nationalism, resulting in a platform that sounds universally appealing but is administratively hollow and symbolically diluted.
Fourth, the administrative vacuum. He is trying to build a government without seasoned policy experts, relying instead on personal loyalists and second-tier defectors from the very parties he claims to be fighting.
Fifth, the crushing math of the fan-to-voter conversion. 800,000 cheering fans do not necessarily equal enough votes to overcome the brutal reality of the first-past-the-post system, especially when his manifesto promises free gold against a massive 10 lakh crore state debt.
And finally, the immense psychological burden of unscripted decision-making, where he faces media isolation, intense slander, and the weaponization of his deeply personal life.
So after unpacking all of this, what does this all mean? What is the ultimate bottom line here?
The bottom line is a fundamental, inescapable truth of democracy. Popularity might get you in the door, but governance skills are what keep the house standing. Vijay has achieved the absolute hardest part of politics. He has captured the attention, the imagination, and the fierce emotional investment of millions of people. But how he evolves, if he is even capable of evolving, from a charismatic, cinematic icon into a legal, rational authority capable of systemic administration, that is the singular question that will define the 2026 Tamil Nadu election.
Thank you for joining us on this Noolisam deep dive. We've thrown a lot of complex political realities, economic theories, and historical precedents at you today, but we want to leave you with one final, provocative thought to mull over on your own.
Something to really think about.
Think back to our opening. The movie hero fixing the world in 2 hours with a perfectly delivered monologue. We live in a world right now where political PR is almost entirely managed by algorithms, where policy speeches are optimized for 15-second viral clips on social media, and where actors like Vijay have spent decades perfecting the absolute surgical art of emotional manipulation on screen.
The lines are blurring.
Exactly. Are we rapidly approaching an era where voters can no longer distinguish between a carefully crafted, data-driven cinematic persona and actual, boring, unglamorous, but desperately necessary administrative competence? Because eventually the music stops, the script runs out, the director goes home. And what happens to millions of vulnerable people when the hero doesn't actually know how to pass a budget?
It's a chilling thought.
It really is. What do you think? Will Vijay succeed in politics? Or is this just the beginning of a tough reality check? Let us know in the comments. Until next time, keep diving deep. And please don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share this Noolisam channel to keep the conversation going.